Okay, this is a 2014 Chevy Silverado, 6-cylinder base, rear-wheel drive only. This truck's only got like 18,000 miles on it, but it rarely gets driven, so the rear brakes are, as you can see, chunked. So we're going to be replacing brakes and rotors and pads on the back. He does use the parking brake every time, so parking brake shoes are probably really good. So first thing we're going to do is obviously remove the wheel, jack stand, jack under there just for safety, and then these little metal clips that hold the rotor slash drum on. Basically you stick a screwdriver underneath them and then wind them off. You have to get them wound to a thread. They've got like little fingers on them, so you have to back them up and wind them onto a thread. Then we're going to pound on that rotor until it comes off, or loosens. Then we're going to pull everything else off. Anyway, back in 1 second once I get those little spring washer, clip, retainer thingy-ma-dooies off. Okay, because these are a pain if you haven't done them before, my method is, I'm sure a lot of people do the same, not my method, but screwdriver underneath. You're not going to pry them out because you don't want to wreck the little teeth. These retain the drum slash rotor once you get it put back on. So if you just get a smaller screwdriver in behind and then turn it. See, there's no threads down here, so that's where it's mounted on down here. You just kind of have to hold it up, pry it up a little tiny bit so it grabs a thread and will start winding its way off. Once it grabs a thread, then it will start winding off. And they can take a couple minutes to get working. But once they do, they just screw off or unscrew. There we go. No, don't you slip back down. Oh. Well, it did look promising for a second there. Anyway, it can take anywhere from 30 seconds to 2 or 3 minutes to get one of these off, depending on how stubborn it is and how lucky you are. Back in a second. And this is how they wind off. So about a minute and a half when I last turned the camera off. And then they simply, when you put them back on, you just push them on. And like I said, this truck is barely driven. And in a northern climate with a barely driven truck, you get a lot of rust. And you get this. Sometimes driving them is better. So I can take the caliper off right now, but I'm going to smack on the rotor a little bit to see if it's going to loosen. I don't care about it because it's getting replaced. Just make sure you don't hit the studs. Look like it loosened. I can hear it. Yep. Okay. So we're going to pull the caliper off, and we're going to need a 20 millimeter and a 13 millimeter. Am I still running there? I am. What do you know? So the caliper slider pins are held on by a 13 millimeter bolt here, and the base bolt, this is the basically the boot and the slider that the pin goes into. This pin screws into this, and you're gonna have to hold that. A 20 or 21 will hold it while you loosen it, and it's probably not going to be easy. So where is it? Just going to tap. So you're holding the 21 and you're loosening the 13. Woo! There she goes. Jesus. That's 8-year-old thread locker. Okay, same for this bottom one, or top one, and bottom one down here. Oops, can you see? Down here, there's the exact same setup. So undo both of those and be back in a sec. You can see the thread locker on those bolts. We'll be taking that off of the wire wheel before we put it back on. Just going to gently pry the caliper off. These pads are pretty stuck on there. Be careful with this caliper because it's aluminum. The rest of the brake assembly is steel. So before we do anything else, we're going to compress the piston back in. You can use a C-clamp, you can use vice grips, you can use a compressor specially made for pushing caliper pistons back in. I've used a C-clamp for 40 years. And gently wind it back in. Go, it's flush with the surface here, and it's just flush with the surface of the caliper here and the rubber dust boot. So you want to check the rubber boot and make sure there's no cracking in it, no fluid leaking out. Come on, release caliper or C-clamp. There we go. Sorry. Now with a wire wheel, I'm going to clean the spots where pads are going to contact the two fingers, and carefully the round surface of the piston. I don't want to touch the boot. Stupidly enough, I'm not wearing glasses right now. You should be. I should be too. So I'm going to take some synthetic brake grease. Where do I have it? I had it right here. Oops. Never let your caliper hang from the brake hose. Just always hold it up on something. And if you can't do that, bungee cord it up. I'm going to use some of the brake grease that came from the package and just put a little bit on the fingers here. Can you see that? That'll keep them from squealing, and on the round part, metal part of the piston. Right there. tiny little coating. Then we're going to set that up on the frame in the spring, which is nice to have because it's a nice easy ledge. And you can probably see these pads here are quite toasty. They do not push back out. The springs are not forcing them back out. These spring clips on here have springs that should push these back out, and they are not moving. So now you're going to take an 18 millimeter for the two back. I don't know if I can get you in there. These two bolts that hold the caliper carrier, which is this whole assembly here. Oh, check my slider pins. That one's good. This one is stuck. Not good. I'm gonna need a 20 millimeter wrench. I was just using a 21 because you barely had to hold it, but this one is not moving. So I'll take care of that in a second. This is an 18 millimeter here and here, and we're gonna remove those and be back in a second. I won't bother you with watching that. Second bolt coming out. It's the 18 millimeter caliper carrier bolt. I'll back you up a little bit here. Oddly enough, the inner pad has got less wear than the outer pad. Inner pad is where the piston is, and that would usually wear down quicker on most vehicles. But these pads are stuck in there. We're gonna have to tap those out with a hammer. Tappy tap. Holy cow, they're in there. Tapping them this way will wreck the brake springs. Doesn't matter, comes with new ones. The kit did. These are the springs, and these push the pads back out. You push the pad in from this side, and these springs are supposed to push them back. I'll show you a new one. That's what a new one would look like, and you see the spring here. Your pad would go in, touch this, and push itself, automatically push itself back, so your pads aren't wearing down all the time. This is the one that was stuck. Okay. Firstly, let's pull these old springs out. And now we're gonna religiously clean the little grooves and slots and everywhere where those spring pads, these new spring pads, are gonna sit, or else they will be too tight from the rust. They'll be sitting on top of the rust, and that'll make them too tight. So we're just gonna wire wheel them to death. Until all the old chunks are gone. It's going to take a while. I'm going to do both sides, and while I'm at it, I'm just going to get a 20 millimeter socket, turn it back and forth, loosen this up, pull it out, and then re-grease this pin. So the pin should come out like this. It'll be greasy, and it's just basically a little bit stuck in there. And I'll show you how to do this one before we do anything. You basically just clean it off, put new brake grease on it. Synthetic is best. High temperature synthetic grease, which did come in the kit. Slather a good amount on. Inside the bore. Slop it around. And that's it. Anyway, we're going to loosen this one, grease it the same as this, and be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'll show you this because this is something you could come into a problem with. Oh, stay up, mister. What? Trying to balance it in the drawer because I'm an idiot. So the boot that holds the pin in the dust boot on this one, and getting this one unseized, it ripped. So these are just an insert. These boots on the GMs should be the same on the front and rear, I believe, on the calipers. And there we go. It's just a metal sleeve with a rubber boot attached to it, and it just simply pops down into here. I'm gonna have to get new ones for him tomorrow because today is a holiday and I don't have anything available. But I'm gonna put this back together to show you. Let's just pretend this boot is good. I'm gonna leave that sitting in there. So we'll pretend this boot is good and continue on. Apologies. I have another one of these boots in the garage, and for the last hour I've been looking for it and I can't find it. I have no clue where it is. So I know there's a couple left over when I did my neighbor out there, his 2014 GM last year, and I know there's 2 boots sitting somewhere, 2 of those boot kits, and I cannot for the life of me find them, which is driving me nuts. But organization ain't my thing, so I don't know where the hell anything is. So let's continue cleaning up those calipers, and we'll continue from where we were. Okay, so now that everything's cleaned off, again, we're going to pretend that boot's there, and we're going to reassemble everything. Normally, this is what the pin that came out looked like. And that's why it ripped the boot, because when I started spinning it, it just grabbed the boot and done. That pin will be fine. Once it's cleaned up. But anyway, I'm just going to use this one for demonstration anyway. We are going to replace this first thing tomorrow. So anyway, we're going to... Did we grease up this pin already? Yes, we did, didn't we? Can't remember if we did or not. Did we? Yes, we did. So you grease up this pin too. I'm just going to grease this one up so it'll come out. It doesn't need grease on it because it's going to be yet anyway. Just to keep more schmutz from getting in there. We're just going to pretend to put that one back in. Look at, see how sticky it is in there? And that can be just blasted out with some brake cleaner, WD-40, whatever. Get the old nasty grease out. But anyway, whatever. It's in there for now. Spring clips. Let's move on to spring clips. One. Where's the other one? There we go. Oh. There we go. Spring clips. See the little dented in, see a little indented part at the top, right there. So that pushes in that way. Oops. And don't force these on, they go on nice and easy and pop in. Same on both sides, the clip is the exact same on both. There's these little fingers here that go locate in between. And these are little fingers that the pads touch on. So we'll grab your pads, and if, I've said this before, but if you don't know which pad is which, the pad on the piston side, your caliper piston side will always be the one that has the squealer. This is the little squealer that once it wears down to this will touch the rotor and tell you it's time for the pads. So this is always on the inside, the side where the caliper is. So your caliper mounts like this. This one is going to mount like so. And then the other one bada boom. And now you can see the little springs. Oops, no you can't. Now you can see the little springs when the brakes are pushed in, they push the brakes back out away from the rotor so they're not constantly in contact. Okay, let's move on to this rotor. Obviously make sure you don't have your parking brake on, because that would make stuff really hard. Boom. Aha. There's no way those aren't new. There's no way those are 14 years old. Who knows? I'm gonna spray lube all the moving surfaces, not the pads, but the moving surfaces inside. With some penetrant grease. Wow, those look really good. I'm surprised, shocked actually. Getting some brake cleaner and a new rotor. One sec. Sorry, just tapped on the rotor and pulled it off and realized you guys weren't watching. Looks like someone's been in here before. There's no way that's 14 or 8-year-old brakes. I don't know. Anyway, I just blast them with some lubricant. The moving parts, not the friction parts, not these pads. You're not going to touch those. Spray a bit of brake clean on the pads. Huh, that's crazy. I can't believe they look that good in there. But like, does this look like it came from the same car as this? Whatever. He says he's never had it in. He's owned it from new. And he's never touched it. Sorry, just unwrapping the new rotor. New rotor slash drum, because it's a drum brake for the parking brake and a rotor for the brakes. I'm spraying them off with some brake cleaner. Get the packing grease off. And wiping them down. And because that was such a monster before, I'm going to clean this up with a wire wheel and put some anti-seize on there back in a sec. Okay, I wire brushed those down a bit. All the areas where the rotor's meeting the hub, so she's not stuck on next time. Don't put this stuff on lug nuts. Like that just got on there. I'm gonna have to clean that off. Because you want your lug nuts to be tight. You don't want them to be slippery, or else your lug nuts can come off. Where's our nice clean rotor? £50 a friendly. Now, remember these little guys? And that's it. Now, oh, I need to clean that too. Jesus, how is this so rusty? So back where that's going to contact the hub. I'm going to slip that around. Oops, I didn't clean off my bolts yet. Hey, you stay in there. I'm going to clean off these bolts and apply a bit of blue thread locker. Blue, not red. Use red, you'll never get it off. Wow, it's warm out, so this stuff's really runny. You don't need a lot, you need like a drop. Can you see? I hope you can see. Top bolt. Bolt. Now when I want to replace, when I get a new one for this tomorrow, all I have to do is take this caliper off. Oops. All I have to do is take that caliper off. I don't have to take the rotor or anything off, and then pop this out and put the new one in. That's a real pisser that I can't find that one though. Anyway, 18 millimeter, I'm going to tighten these up, and I'll come back with the torque spec. I have to check the torque spec because I don't know what it is. Back in a sec. Okay, torque specs are for the carrier. The big 18 millimeter bolts are 160. That's what I got offline, and 35 for these ones for the caliper to the carrier. Wow, this does not. My torque wrench doesn't fit in here. There we go. Wow, that's tight. I'm going to torque this one up and be back in a sec. It's going to take me a minute because it's got very little movement. Okay, those are both on it. 160. We've already pre-done our caliper. We've gotten it ready to go back on. Make sure you don't kink the line. Gently slip it over. You're going to have to push the pads in the tiniest little bit. Against the springs. Make sure to tuck the two bolts underneath. And then you have your two caliper bolts that are about 35 foot-pounds. A drop of blue thread locker on this. On each one of those. Man, my hands are filthy, huh? I wonder why. Oops. Now I'll just tighten up the top one. I mean, we're basically done. You gotta throw your tire back on after this. I mean, obviously I'm not taking... Why is this not going on? There we go. This car's not leaving my driveway. And in case you need to see the torque wrench being used, I don't know, maybe like that. Maybe you're kind of weird. welding that top pin again. Actually, I can tighten this top one. I'll just be able to swing the caliper out away from that when I get that new boot. And you should hear it click, the torque wrench click, when we hit 35. That's it. Bottom one I'm not going to do again because I got to replace that one. And other than putting your wheels back on, you are done. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, share would be great. Apparently Google or YouTube likes that now. So thank you very much for watching.